the Blue Jays kick off a 9-game road trip, and oh no, Charms, it's the AL East.
Ooh, what's the last stint there? 2-9
last month.
Not
Yeah,
great.
6-15 against the AL East.
Yeah.
But the Jays not bad. Won 7 of their last 10, taking on the Orioles in Baltimore. And to join us right now and kick off this series and preview it is Mike Wilner of the Toronto Star. Mike, thanks for joining us. We haven't had you on since Alek Manoah, at least before Alek Manoah got sent down to the Florida Complex League. Your initial reaction to the Blue Jays doing that, and do you believe that they waited too long?
I don't think they waited too long, no. But I did think that after his last start that he just couldn't. You just couldn't put him out there again.
Yeah.
He gave up 6 runs. He got 1 out facing 9 hitters. It was horrible. And so, to send him down to Buffalo where he was going to have to pitch again in 5 days, or to one of the other lower minor league teams, what he really needed to do was just to get away for a little bit and take a breath and relax. I wrote a whole column about what Ricky Romero said to me about it. It was in the Toronto Star today. So go check it out. But yeah, after that last start, there was no way that they were going to be able to throw him back out on a major league mound. So I figured they would send him down, take him off the roster, whether it was something bothering him, if he had to go on the injured list. But the best thing to do is to get him down to their pitching lab in Dunedin and try to get all those slow-mo cameras on him and figure out exactly what's what.
Chris Bassett had some things to say about that. He says, we're going to see the Cy Young type Alek Manoah back soon. But he also said something that really caught my eye. He goes, people don't understand that this is a part of the game. It's commonplace. And it happened to Bassett. He mentioned multiple times. Are we, as the media and fans, are we kind of blowing this out of proportion?
No, I don't think so. And I don't think it's commonplace, as Chris Bassett says. I mean, it's commonplace, certainly, that it's not a linear progression to the major leagues. And once you get here, you're very often not here to stay. Look, Mike Trout got sent down, right? It is commonplace that players who make it to the major leagues for the first time tend to go back down before coming up to stay. What's not commonplace is that a pitcher makes it to the major leagues for the first time, finishes top 5 in Rookie of the Year his first year, finishes top 3 in Cy Young voting his second year, and then has to go back down. That is definitely not commonplace. So, I mean, fans blow everything out of proportion. The media blows everything out of proportion. It tends to be why people think I'm like always super positive and a big homer when I'm like so not. I just don't blow anything out of proportion. But this is a big deal. This is only the 4th time in the history of the franchise that someone has been sent all the way down to A ball or lower from the major leagues.
So Mike, Manoah can relax perhaps, right? But his team can't relax. There's no obvious replacement in the minors within them. So I believe, as it stands right now, there'll be a bullpen start on Saturday, I believe. Has there been any talk about Trevor Richards being stretched out more? I mean, he looks really good in his recent work. Could he go as a starter at some point?
I don't know that you want to mess with that. I mean, he's been such a big part of the bullpen too, right? This year, unexpectedly so. He's been a starter in the major leagues before, but there are very few Ross striplings out there, right? There aren't a lot of players who you can just stretch out during the season and be comfortable with it. But you're right, there's no ready replacement either, although whoever you get is going to be giving you more than what Alek Manoah unfortunately gave you over the first 2 months of the season. But I don't have the problem with having Richards run out there in Manoah's spot, even if it's just to throw 3 innings or 4 innings next time or whatever, is you might as well be stretching him out to pitch 6, because you can't use him in between if you want to use him that much every 5 days. So you're losing that roster spot, and you also have to piggyback somebody with him in order to not make it a full bullpen day, whether that's Bowden Francis, who, it wouldn't surprise me if sometime in the next 3 or 4 days, Adam Simber or Mitch White went on the injured list so that they could bring Bowden Francis back to be a bulk guy on Saturday in Texas. But if you've decided that you're going to use Richards for 3 innings every 5 days, it means you're losing that bullpen weapon anyway. So you might as well try to stretch him out. But I don't think that's what's going to wind up happening, just because he's been so valuable for them in the pen.
All right, we're speaking with Mike Wilner. So the Jays, as I mentioned, kick off a 9-game road trip. 3 against Baltimore, second best team in the league. 3 against Texas, leads the ALOS. 3 against the Marlins, top 5 team in the NL. It's a tough trip for these guys right now, based on what's going on. What are your expectations for this road trip?
This was supposed to be an easy trip, right? This was supposed to be when the schedule opens up. Nobody saw Texas doing that. Nobody saw Baltimore being this good, and Miami is shocking the world, and they might have a 400 hitter, but in the end of June anyway. It takes a long time to hit 400, but Luis Ariz is having an incredible year. This is going to be a tough trip.
Yeah,
it's going to be tough. There's no question. And I said it when the Jays went into this run of 30 games in 31 days that just finished on Sunday. I said, be happy with 16 wins out of these 30 games. And that's what they got, 16 wins. And nobody seems to be happy because that 2-9 was right there in the middle of it. But look, when you're going in to play Baltimore, Texas, Miami, 5-4 is a really good trip. 6-3 would be outstanding.
Yeah.
And 4-5 is kind of, what you should probably be okay with, going on the road against 3 teams, 2 of which are ahead of you in the standings, and the other one is a sparky little upstart. So, you'd love to go see them clean the clocks of the Orioles the way Baltimore swept them here in Toronto last month. You'd love to see Texas start turning into a pumpkin right when the Blue Jays arrive, and then them to take it to Baltimore or to Miami and go 7-2 on the trip. But that's really, really unlikely. They are playing pretty well now. Aside from those Friday, Saturday games against Minnesota, they were 10-3 going into that. And they got the sort of win that we didn't expect on Sunday, coming back from 6-1 down. It sort of felt like last year those deficits didn't matter much, but this year they really have. And I think they might get a little bit of a boost from that. They might get a little bit of a boost from Danny Jansen, who's probably coming back today. But, you're trying to win series, and it's tough to do on the road with teams that are ahead of you in the standings. And the difference between a 6-3 and a 3-6 road trip really isn't that much, although it's going to seem, I know, like the end of the world if that's the way it goes. But treading water through a tough part of the schedule is okay. So 4-5 on this trip is okay. 5-4 on this trip is good. 6-3 on this trip is excellent. Anything better than that is bonkers. But the key thing is, they're half a game out of a playoff spot right now. If they come home off this trip in the same place or a game and a half out, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, you got to figure at some point there'll be some crazy run. 10-3 is pretty damn good, right? Let's be honest here. But there are question marks, obviously, and if it's not the pitching, which has been okay, obviously the bats haven't been great. I've got a controversial question here for you, Mike. Vladdy, is he just a really, really, really good baseball player, or is he actually still that generational transformative talent that we thought he would be 3 years ago? Maybe, or is it just too soon to even judge?
I mean, he's 24.
Yeah,
right. He's 24. Most people are still in the minor leagues, and he's already got a second place MVP finish. Vladdy is a generational transformative talent. Absolutely. Is he going to finish in the top 5 in MVP voting every year? No, only Mike Trout does that. Only Mike Trout does that. But so he's not one of the 2 or 3 best players of all time, but he is still, I believe, a Hall of Fame talent who is going to do who has already done some very, very special things in this game. His single season high in home runs is higher than his father's, and his father is in the Hall of Fame, right? He's already got that top 2 MVP finish. Would have won if Shohei Ohtani wasn't some insane unicorn who should win the MVP every year. But yeah, he can slump too, right? He's a guy who made it to the major leagues and has never gone back down and is never going to go back down. but again, progress is not linear. There are bumps in the road, and he's 24. He's still like 3 or 4 years away from his peak as a hitter. So yeah, no, Vlad's gonna be just fine. And you know, we'll look up at the end of the year, and at the end of the year, he'll have, I don't know, somewhere between 25 and 35 home runs, drive in more than 100 runs. He'll have an OPS over 850. And he'll be 30 to 50% better than the average major league hitter. And we're going to say, yeah, he had a crappy year, because that's the bar that's set for this guy. But you know, terrible years for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. are seasons that 90% of major leaguers would sign up for in a heartbeat.
You know, Mike, there were times on a radio show that a call-in would have asked that question of you, and you'd have called that call-in an idiot. So I appreciate the response.
I never called anybody an idiot, James. Never once.
Well, you should have done.
But no, I mean, look, he's hit 1 home run off a non-position player in a month. So I think, you know, it's okay to question what he might be, but if you watch this guy, and I mean, like you said, there's going to be a crazy run for the team. He's going to have a 5-homer week, and he might have more than one. And when it clicks, it's going to click hard for a while, and he's going to go on a run where he hits 420 over 3 weeks, and those numbers will get back to being fantastic again.
He's a columnist for the Toronto Star and host of the Deep Left Field podcast. Mike, as always, thanks so much for doing this.
It's a pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.